Hello everyone, Stakuya here, and yes, today we are going to be getting right back into the Baltic fleet in order to cover its stupidity. I know that it has been a while, it's been actually a month since I posted the first part of this video where I was talking about the setup to it all, so because of that, let's do a little bit of recap. Where we last had left off, the Russians were taken by surprise with the Japanese attacks on their ports in the east, kicking off the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. As Russia held few possessions in the Pacific, a majority component of the war incorporated naval maneuvering. The most important battles, the pinnacle of this war, would occur at sea. Russia's Pacific fleet almost immediately found itself bottled up in Port Arthur, unable to leave to harass Japanese troop movements in Manchuria. Thus, another fleet was called to aid the Pacific fleet. Now, by treaty, the Black Sea Fleet could not sail past Constantinople, so the Russians ordered the Baltic Fleet, which was renamed to the 2nd Pacific Squadron, to sail halfway across the entire world, bolster the Russian naval presence, break out the actual Pacific Fleet, and then say Port Arthur, which, when you say it like that, sounds simple enough, right? Well, this journey of 18,000 miles was not going to be an easy one. So, let's look at the ships. The squadron was comprised of a hodgepodge of modern and archaic. First off, the Admiral's flagship in this case was a modern battleship called the Knyaz Suvorov. It also had 3 overloaded battleships, the Orel, the Alexander III, and the Borodino. And these actually formed the 1st battleship division of the squadron. When I say overloaded, what it means is that not only are they extremely top-heavy by virtue of their guns, armor, ammunition, and just design, but on top of that, because of supply issues, they were heavily overloaded with supplies and coal because they didn't have many chances to refuel, making them highly unstable. In addition to this, 3 older, less heavily armed battleships comprised the 2nd Battleship Division, and 7 cruisers, including an aging frigate actually rigged for sailing, not steaming, sailing. These were also part of the squadron. Also, there were 9 destroyers and a smattering of support ships, which completed the 1st fleet. This made it a total of 42 vessels. Now, all in all, at first glance, this was a genuinely impressive looking fleet, but right off the bat, things went really poorly. First off, before the journey even began, one of the key battleships, the Oriole, actually sank before it even left port. While it was fitting out in Kronstadt in May 1904, in preparation for the journey, they were installing armor on her. Now, some of this temporary sheathing was removed, and that actually allowed water to enter the ship and sank it within 5 days. Needless to say, the situation didn't actually get better as paranoia set in amongst the officers and the crew, but sinking one of your prize battleships before the journey even began was definitely a good way to start this journey. Now, thanks to well-paid spies across the coast and devastating strikes of torpedo boats in the Pacific, the Russian Navy feared Japanese mines and torpedoes even within the waters of northern Europe, and hysteria set in as reports reached the fleet that the Japanese torpedo boats were actually stationed off of the Danish coast. Now, think about this for a second. The question of how a Japanese torpedo boat squadron, which, mind you, has a very limited range, had managed to travel 18,000 miles in so short a time never seemed to have been asked. And so in order to quell these rumors, in order to give some kind of confidence to his men, Rolstovinsky, the admiral, then issued an order that no vessel of any sort must be allowed to get in here amongst the fleet. This is the order that they were given. Thus, when 2 fishermen delivering consular dispatches from the Tsar approached the fleet, the Russians actually opened fire on them. Ironically, the 2 men, who were thankfully unharmed due to the terrible standard of Russian gunnery, had a personal message for Rolstovinsky from Tsar Nicholas, informing him that he had been promoted to vice admiral. For good measure, the fleet repair ship Kamchatka had actually signaled that she was under attack by torpedo boats. When asked how many, she replied, about 8, from all directions, which was a false alarm. Obviously, I do not even know how they managed to get that count. And the antics of the captain and the crew of the Kamchatka would actually be the cause of many more incidents over the course of this journey. And thus, on the night of October 22nd, bugles sounded throughout the fleet as someone sighted the fishing trawler Crane. Now, this was a British civilian fishing vessel that was part of the Hull trawler fleet fishing in the Dogger Bank. The Russians identified these innocent trawlers as being yet more Japanese torpedo boats and opened fire, killing 2 of the crew, wounding almost everyone else on board. As the other fishing vessels came into view, the Russians proceeded to spend 20 minutes shooting defenseless civilians. Now, that's pretty much where it went. In the ensuing pandemonium, several Russian ships signaled that torpedoes had hit them. On the battleship the Bordino, some of the crew actually donned life belts and lay prone on the deck, thinking that they were being bombed, while others were charging around wielding cutlasses and other improvised melee weapons, shouting that the ship was being boarded by the Japanese, which in turn panicked the rest of the fleet even more. So the Russian battleships continued firing. They damaged 4 British trawlers, and also actually sank 1. For good measure, they even managed to hit 2 of their own cruisers, the Aurora and the Donskoy, which had been subject to a bombardment from 7 Russian battleships sailing in line formation ahead of them. The following morning revealed that a night of madness caused by mass hysteria amongst the Russians had thankfully not done much damage. Fortunately for the British trawlers and also the 2 Russian cruisers, Russian gunnery was so bad that the damage was actually very minimal. As an example of this, the Russian battleship the Oriol had actually fired over 500 shells without hitting a damn thing. Massive waste of ammunition. Massive waste. Not that the entire situation, of course, from the very beginning was already a massive waste of ammunition, but you get what I mean. Now, the Russian government was very quick to apologize, but British public opinion and the media demanded war against Russia. 28 British battleships from the home fleet were ordered to raise steam and prepare for action, while British cruiser squadrons shadowed the Russian fleet as it crossed the Bay of Biscay and sailed down the Portuguese coast. When nearing Vigo, Rostovinsky was ordered to dock, leaving behind the officers who had been responsible for attacking the British trawlers. Now, if you recall from my previous episode, Rostovinsky had a number of issues with different officers and different people there, the people that were serving under them. He didn't really like them. So what he did is he used this as an opportunity to clear himself from some of this. For example, he tried to rid himself of Captain Clado, who was one of his more bitter critics. Clado was ordered to return to St. Petersburg and organize reinforcements for the fleet, but because of this slight, Clado would actually use the opportunity as revenge on Rostovinsky by rounding up old, obsolete vessels to serve as reinforcements, which the admiral had already condemned as old tubs and jokingly referred to them as sink-by-themselves vessels, part of the sink-by-themselves squadron. And that is where our story will end today. Join us next time when the Baltic fleet actually manages to reach Africa and the shenanigans that ensue. I hope you all enjoyed this little coverage of the Dogger Bank incident. Let me know what it is that you think. Merch, Patreon, Twitch, everything is in the link below. And hey, join me, whether it's tonight here at 9 p.m. or on the weekends when I'm streaming more around 5 or 6. Please do join me. You can check my schedule down below. And I will see you all next time. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.